View reacts to Donald Trump's first 100 days of his presidency, and let's just say unhinged is an understatement.
Right, ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran was at the White House for a wide-ranging interview with you-know-who that covered the biggest issues of his first 100 days in office, like tariffs, his administration picks, and the accidental deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. My lips are failing me. Watch and see this clip.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right. We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think
agree
it was
to disagree.
Photoshopped? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them.
To echo what Terry said, that image of a tattoo reading MS-13 was Photoshopped.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They
Obviously Photoshopped.
And it's done, it's quite
obvious.
obviously Photoshopped. And so...
It's not even done well.
No.
Yeah. No.
But, you know, we don't want to cause any issues. But what was your takeaway from this?
He doesn't even recognize his own fake images at this point. But, you know, here's what I watched the whole thing.
Did you?
And I'm really starting to feel sorry for him. He's over his head. The simplest questions he cannot answer. He knows that only immigration is maybe where he's been somewhat successful. It's like, and then he turns on Terry Moran when he asks, "How dare you ask me a question I can't answer?" I mean, the guy, the guy is over his head, and he knows it. I feel bad for him now. Or as he would say, I feel badly.
I didn't feel badly for him. I didn't.
But that's the correct way.
I feel badly for us. I feel badly for us for our country because, you know, as an attorney, I always believed in the rule of law, and we've always said that this is a constitutional democracy, and we are a country of laws, especially the Republican Party, and especially this president. And when you talk about Abrego Garcia, basically here, legally, being taken and deported to El Salvador, and then you have a federal judge in Maryland that says, bring him back, facilitate his return. It goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then says, facilitate his return.
Yeah.
Then you have President Trump during this interview saying
the lawyers.
I'm not going to bring him back.
No.
I can, but I'm not going to.
For somebody who claims to be a lawyer, shouldn't you know the difference that America is actually a constitutional republic, not a constitutional democracy? I don't even know what that is. Now, I don't know if his knuckles were actually tattooed MS-13, but what I do know that a friend of the wife's refused to report this man to the police in the past because he had gang affiliations. And secondly, he's not an American citizen. Why are these people so hell-bent on bringing him back into this country when he is known to have run-ins with the law many different times? This is a troubled man who was in this country illegally. This is not some good Samaritan. This was a stone-cold criminal, and Donald Trump has every right to say, you know what, I only want American citizens in this country. So if you're an illegal immigrant, it's time for you to go back home. And the sheer fact that a federal judge tried superseding the president of the United States and he has to house illegals in this nation, what a freaking joke. That judge needs to answer some questions as to why he's trying to stop Donald Trump from preserving national security.
Constitutional crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here.
That's right.
We are in this constitutional crisis when you have the president of the United States on ABC News national interview saying, I am not going to do what the Supreme Court, another branch, a co-equal branch, told me to do.
Well,
I am terrified.
The constitutional part is the due process, too.
There's no due process. He was shipped. But there's also a judge's order that he's saying, my administration will not follow it. What do you do with that?
I thought that Terry Moran did a very good job. And these are not easy interviews to do. And what stood out to me was two things. This MS-13 bit, because it seemed very clear to me, knowing Donald Trump, that he was not briefed that that is not a real image and that it was photoshopped. And that is a huge failure of his staff. If they are not before these interviews saying, sir, you should not reference that, this is not true. And it speaks to sort of a timidity of people not wanting to speak truth to him because they're fearful they may lose their jobs. But also, when it got into this issue of immigration, Donald Trump won on it in 2016 and in 2024. And for the first time, he's underwater. He's only got 45% on it. And it's because he's focusing on deporting people without due process under law. What makes America the greatest nation on earth is you get that due process. Donald Trump, of all people, should be glad that you're innocent until proven guilty.
They give it to him.
That system benefited him. But he did,
except that he was found guilty.
but he got the process. But he got the process. But finally, he said one thing that is a glowing success for him, yet it's not what the White House is talking about. He's effectively ended the border crisis in 100 days in office, but he's not talking about that. Instead, they're making these frankly, really like horrible videos of people locked up and in chains being dragged and deported without due process.
And that little kid I mentioned yesterday, that 4-year-old boy who had stage 4 cancer, and they sent him back with his mother to Honduras without his medication. That's just cruel.
And also,
politics.
one of the things that are, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, it's actually kind of similar to what Alyssa was saying. I came at this interview through a different lens. I know what I think and why I didn't vote for him, but I was curious why, although his numbers are slipping, there are some people, and I'm sure we all know some of them or work with them or, are neighbors with some who really believe he's doing a good job. And it all came down to, it really did come down to immigration, but at the border, it wasn't the deportations. And I think the problem is if he'd get out of his own way and leave the cruelty and the inhumanity of what he's doing with these deportations and focusing on the numbers are 93% down. It's the lowest in history. If he just focused on that and fixed his process, I actually think he'd garner more support on that one issue.
Yeah, but he does so many other things wrong.
Well, I know, but the fact that it's right there.
Like dismantling the Department of Education.
Well, that's the one thing they still support.
All of the mistakes that they've been making, going into people's houses, going into the wrong house,
churches,
deporting children without their parents. There's a little baby she's 2, and she's now in foster care because they took her mom and dad.
So
I mean,
evil.
it just, listen, everybody wants a fair shot to come to this country, or used to. This used to be the really, we knew we had problems, but we were doing better than anybody else.
It's true.
The embarrassment of America right now is that we are no longer the country of due process. We are no longer the country
constitutional democracy.
No, we're just not. We're in some kind of Twilight Zone thing. And, again, it's going to be up to us. It's really, there's politicians and then there's us. And you have every right to vote the people who are not taking care of our democracy out of office.
Donald Trump can land a man on the moon. He can cure cancer. He can walk on water. And these people will still find a way to insult him, ridicule him, because these are very hate-filled people. They don't like logic. They don't like common sense, because that's contrary to their entire being. These are nothing but partisan shills making millions, spreading misinformation all across the world. And she mentions, why is Donald Trump and his White House sharing videos of putting criminals behind bars? Are you serious right now? Are you in kindergarten? Do you not understand? He's trying to dissuade criminals from entering this country because he's saying, if you come into our nation, you will be dealt with an iron fist. And contrast that to what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did. All they said is, don't come. Don't come. If you do come, we're going to house you in 5-star luxury hotels in New York City. But please don't come. If you want to see how effective that strategy was, just look at how many illegal immigrants were imported in this country in the last 4 years. It was millions upon millions. There was a legitimate invasion in our southern border at a rate that we have never seen before in our country. What do you expect? These people say that the MS-13 gang member was an upstanding citizen. He never did anything wrong. These people are hardened criminals. They need to be dealt. These people are hardened criminals. If you or I were committing any of these actions, we would be promptly thrown behind bars, and rightfully so. If you want to have a nation that protects and preserves law and order, You need to uphold the law evenly. You shouldn't treat criminals better than people who are doing the right thing on a daily basis. So if you ask me, every single thing that Trump and his administration are doing regarding our border is right on the money, and it is dearly needed, because if we kept at that same path, if we stayed on that trajectory, we would not have a country in 4 years, and our streets would look very similar to that of London and the United Kingdom. And that right there is a failed nation. That's why we need strong leadership like Tom Homan, Donald Trump, to steer the ship correctly, put us back on the right track, and that's what they're doing. But let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think that man should have been deported, or should he have been left alone? Let me know. I'd love to know your opinions. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.